There we go. Hey.
Hello.
Hi. Thanks for Yama.
Yamba. Thank you so much for coming on Mod TV today. It's really, really exciting to speak to you both. And the reason we've asked you to join us today is because you have both co-founded Blackfulla Bookclub on Instagram, which is a platform that honors First Nations ancestors as the original storytellers. And we would love to learn more about your work on this project. So maybe to start off, you could explain for our viewers a bit about Blackfulla Bookclub and what inspired you to start this platform.
Yeah, Min, you go.
So the book club kind of was an idea that was born out from both of us, where I had started an online book club with some other Aboriginal lawyers, just as a way to really connect with people who were feeling really isolated at that time. And this was when COVID was really ramping up, and the restrictions were becoming really strict. And so from that, Teela decided to start the online book club, which is more than anything that we both could have probably imagined at that time. It was really just an idea about connecting to First Nations stories, and that was just over 2 months ago, and now we have over 20,000 followers. It's been really just a bit of a crazy ride.
Yeah, and I think just to add to Merinda, exactly what she said, like this was born, I guess, out of a time where we were all forced to be in isolation, which goes against, as a Blackfulla, it goes against everything, that we have grown up to learn in terms of our kinship and our stories, and how we have always connected to our families, our people, but also our country and our ancestors. So for Merinda and I, while a lot of other workers were kind of either unfortunately put out of work or had to change their way of life in terms of working, for both of us, we were essential workers. So, I have been on the front line of the criminal justice system, and Merinda and I have been friends for a long time now. And so the connection through the book club and the storytelling was just an idea conceived and created by both of us, where we wanted to share our love of Blackfulla storytelling with everyone else, because we had grown up around the campfire with our elders. For us, COVID meant that we had to, in order to protect our elders, we had to stay away from them. So the connection and the storytelling and bringing back that sense of campfire was something that was really we wanted to create with Blackfulla Book Club.
That's so
and
amazing.
Can I just vibe off that now?
Please.
I was just thinking while Teela was talking, and I was thinking back to the time. It was around early April, late March when we started the book club. And I remember really feeling like I was sitting in a place of trauma. And I remember talking to Teela around that time. I was really scared for her. She was out in the courts every day, still physically going to court at a time when we didn't know where the virus was. We didn't know much about how it was transmitted. And as an Aboriginal person, I think I was really struggling with this kind of fear, that knowing that viruses and pandemics have killed us throughout history. And that was a really difficult time for a lot of us. We were all I think struggling with this kind of genetic trauma of past pandemics, and to be able to connect to something that is really about who we are as people and as humans has been really enlightening, I suppose, for us as individuals. And I think a lot of us, whether you're Aboriginal or not, have kind of gone through that process during the pandemic about really trying to find out who we are and to try and reconnect to what is true. And I think, yeah, stories is what it kind of comes back to for us.
Yeah, and absolutely, like it. And before having those yarns with Merinda at the beginning of the pandemic, it was uncertain times. And interestingly enough, at the beginning of the year, I had a few writers' festivals lined up. I was asked to be the MC and host for the Newcastle Writers' Festival. I was asked to be in conversation with Uncle Archie Roach about his book, Tell Me Why. I was going to do also be part of the Sydney Writers' Festival. But at each of these things, what I felt, and I had been at the Adelaide Writers' Festival as well. And at each of them, I kind of was like, I didn't feel like they were spaces that were welcoming to us. While it was creative spaces, and there was still this sense of, this is how the colony does it. This is how, these are our rules. These are our publications. I just thought, I grew up so different to that. I grew up with stories around the campfire, and I just think that with this kind of idea, it was about going, hey, we can control this. We can do this. We've controlled our narrative for thousands of years, and we can continue to do that. And Merinda likes different, genres to what I do. She's really into futurism and that kind of stuff. And I'm really into like non-fiction, and we're both into kids books. So I think it just cuts a really nice cross-section of our Blackfulla storytelling.
Absolutely. So with shifting this book club into being it's an online platform through Instagram, has there been anything particularly challenging about that?
Keeping up with the demand. Everyone loves Blackfulla Book Club. Everyone, and it's been overwhelming. I think the Australian people are going, oh my God, there's this whole world of Black literature that they were never exposed to.
Totally. Well, I got to say, I've been following your Instagram, and I was a bit starstruck when I knew that we'd be talking to you tonight.
Thanks.
Yeah, I think that's probably been the biggest challenge, is keeping up with people sliding into our DMs. It's hard to respond to everyone, but we really try. And we do have day jobs. Blackfulla Book Club is just something we do out of love, and we've got to go to work 9 to 5 and still be lawyers. So Blackfulla Book Club it's kind of like another full-time job, but one that we love.
It's been amazing. And you know what? We're learning new things every day on the platform as well. We're so inspired by our Black readers and writers, and especially our children, our Jarjams. Oh my God. I mean, they are writing amazing things. Merinda has some really good feedback on, some books that she's been reading from our Jarjams, and they are so good.
Yeah, that is awesome. Level. So speaking of that, what books are you reading right now, or are there particular books that you're loving that you really want to recommend? It's a big question.
Okay, I'll go. Right now I am reading Terranullius by Claire G. Coleman. And this book is insane. I can't recommend it enough. It crosses multiple genres. It's kind of a bit sci-fi-y. It's a bit futuristic. It's a dystopian fiction, which I'm a mad fan of dystopian fictions. I really love escapism. But it's such an exercise in truth telling as well. It really forces you to confront the colonial project in Australia, and it does so in a really clever way and forces you to really come face to face with the way that Aboriginal people have been really demonised and dehumanised in Australia. So that's what I'm kind of sinking my teeth into right now. I can't recommend this highly enough. Yeah.
Well, and for me, I must admit in the last week, I personally haven't picked up a book, just with the protests and everything kind of online and activism right now. However, I can say I've read a lot of police information in the last week from trying to get my clients out of custody. But I have to admit, a priority for me in the past little bit has been getting some more kids' books for my niece and nephew. There is so many amazing children's books that are written by Blackfullas, for Blackfullas, but also for a non-Aboriginal audience. Like, I really love Sally Morgan's work. With, you know, everyone needs to go to Magabala Books right now and get every children's book that they have. I'm thinking as well about maybe writing something myself. I won't say too much, but, you know, we can't do everything at once. But yeah, I mean, I'm really interested in terms of putting more of my own Wiradjuri language out there in writing. So I'm working on an idea with that, which is exciting. But other than that, yeah, it's just business as usual, and we're kind of just going with the flow on the platform. There's so, like, you know, with Black Lives Matter, it's been overwhelming how many people want to buy more Black literature. There's so much to do with Blackfulla Book Club right now that, yeah, as Merinda says, it's just so hard to keep up. But there's so many great things. That's a good thing as well.
So we've actually had a couple questions come through from audience on the chat. So the first one is for you, Merinda. Someone's written, I'm super interested at the moment in Aboriginal futures and science fiction. Is there anything Merinda would recommend as a favourite?
Oh, I definitely recommend Terra Nullius for a fictional book. There's also a non-fiction book which is quite interesting called Spiral to the Stars. It's by a Canadian Indigenous woman, and it talks about how do you contemplate Indigenous futures, and it gives you these kind of templates to start having those conversations and to think about what does the future look like. So I really recommend that as well.
Awesome, thank you. And the other question that's just come through, how about books for young adults?
That was the other book I decided to bring.
Perfect.
Homeland Calling is a book that was produced coming out of a project that was done by Desert P Media. They travelled around Australia to remote communities and did these hip hop workshops. And so this book is a collection of those lyrics that those young people wrote in those workshops, and it really is just so beautiful. And the lyrics just really speak to what the concerns are of young Aboriginal people today, and they really are very mature and really insightful. And you know, some of these poems are about, a lot of them are about the land and their connection to the land, and about there's one poem in here from Wilkenya, which is where my family is from, in far western New South Wales, and they talk about the Darling River, which for those of you who don't know, the Darling River hasn't been flowing for a long time. They recently had some rains, but the water wasn't running. There was no river in Wilkenya, in a town that used to be a major port town. And they talk so strongly about the Darling River, and it's really beautiful to see young people being so passionate about the river systems and about the environment and about the land.
And I think exactly, I mean, with that kind of form that's directed at young people, that in terms of Blackfulla stuff, we have to remember, you know, that's such a testament to their work, but they express their stories in different ways, that we have to remember that it's not always in written form for our young mob, that they are absolutely challenging, you know, the Western idea that these things must be written down or are just delivered in a book. You know, there's so many creatives that are doing their own songs. Like even, you know, I know Desert P Media and the Burke mob from out there, you know, they've got like YouTube clips and songs and lyrics, and they're just so powerful. And the thing is, you know, because of, you know, structural racism or limitations, their voices aren't coming through as the typical Western idea of what it is to be a book, like a book. So I think, you know, young people generally, I don't know if this is just me, but they don't seem to be big book readers. But I stand to be proven wrong on that. But my point is that I think that when it comes to Blackfulla young people, we have to be minded, you know, they're doing their stories on TikTok.
Yeah, totally. So, and I would really recommend if people want to check out Homeland Calling and some of those videos they did in communities, you can check them out on YouTube. If you just YouTube Desert P Media, you can see all the videos they created, and I think that's a really nice way to actually engage with this book, is to watch the videos, and then you can kind of connect to the place that these people are kind of talking about in the poetry. So
a great author we should mention though is Curly Saunders, who's published by Magabala Books. She does some great young Australian literature. So yeah, just gonna drop her name because she's amazing.
I love all these recommendations. I am like addicted to getting recommendations for things to read and watch. So this is fueling so much of what I want to spend my time doing. Now I'd love to chat about something slightly different, but you took over the Indigenous X Socials this week, which was really cool to see. So could you tell us about what kind of content you've been sharing through that platform, and maybe some places that we can go to find more content like this?
You want to go, Teela?
Look, to be honest, I don't think there's a great plan behind what we do. I mean, it just works. And, you know, with IX, I mean, I got home last night and I was like, Min, do you want to do that post? Like, it just comes out, whatever is flowing through. But there's lots of different interesting connections on Twitter that aren't necessarily as active on Instagram. I think, you know, like Dr. Anita Ahais, I think, you know, she has some amazing connections through like Auslit, at Auslit, and there's another handle as well that are actually already existing platforms for a lot of this work that we are kind of already trying to find ourselves. And I think in terms of IX this week, it's about going, hey, our stories matter. Hey, we tell them in different ways, and that they should be valued. And Merinda talks a lot about, you know, the intrinsic value of that and what they mean to us spiritually. And so communicating that through any medium is really important. I think IX just has a lot more followers than other platforms. And yeah, I just think IX will be what it is this week, but we'll still go back to Instagram.
I think that's the thing about IX. It's really organic, and you could go in there having one kind of conception about what you want, what the conversation is that you want to have. But then depending on who's on Twitter that day and who's engaging with you, the conversation might go to this whole other place that you never expected. And that's what's beautiful about it. Yeah. And so this week we were also posting about this morning about the Miles Franklin Award. which this year 2 Indigenous authors were shortlisted for. So we were, we're highlighting what's happening in Indigenous literature at the moment through IX.
And we're also trying to create space for new voices and new writers. Merinda and I, we're lawyers, we're not that creative. But we know we can create space, we can hold space, we can make space for these stories. And I think that part of our vision has always been not just to kind of elevate what's already there, but to ensure that Aboriginal people and Torres Strait Islander people have the courage to put their stories, if it's on paper or in a podcast, that we have always been the original storytellers, and that's a beautiful gift. That's a beautiful gift, and it should be celebrated. And this year we saw Magabala Books win the small publisher of the year, and they're based on Yarra country and Broome. And I just think we really need to be putting these celebrated front and center of what we are learning. And it's about as well unlearning Western ways. The IX and the IG are just mediums to communicate what we think is already there or what more can be created. So we have honestly, ever since we started our IG account, it's just grown into itself. And I think that's because there's a real need to deconstruct Western ways of knowledge and knowing.
And Teela, you just touched on this next question, so maybe you're a bit psychic. But I was going to ask, what are the best ways to support Aboriginal authors?
I think the best way to support Aboriginal authors, I don't know a direct answer, but I think it's just creating space. For example, those Black kids that contributed to Homeland Calling, for example, I, without a doubt, bet you that some of them were kids who were told they weren't good enough in English class. I, without a doubt, bet that they were told that, they didn't get A's on their school report. But what they produced in that book and those lyrics, it's all about creating space and safe spaces. And also designing a world we all want to live in. How boring is it to keep learning the colonial project or Western ways when we have thousands of years of storytelling intertwined into this land? And so many of the stories I grew up knowing weren't in a book. They were by my grandfather or my grandparents about what the land means to us. And I think that we need to get back to that base. We need to get back to that base and allow our young people to express that whatever way they want. So it's not just about reading books. It's about, writing and storytelling in any form.
Now, I would love to just keep talking to you both, but unfortunately we've come to the end of the segment.
Oh my God.
I know.
I'm ready to keep going.
I know. Everything you're saying is just raising so many more awesome paths we could go down. But thank you both so much for being so generous with your stories and your time today. It's been an absolute pleasure.
Thank you.
That was fun.